Naked and Famous, man. It doesn't feel like I've thought about this band for a long time. I feel as though many people are in the same boat with that because they had a few minor hits back in like early 2010s with songs like Young Blood, which felt like it was huge at the time, but since then they just haven't really had that same impact or momentum. It was cool to get this request through a Patreon request, by the way, so if you are interested in looking into my Patreon, you can have a look and consider a donation because you get videos like this if you do donate to me through there. And hearing this name through that recommendation was like, damn, the Naked and Famous. They were very much indebted to the synth pop, the huge synth pop that kind of, became huge in the late 2000s, bands like MGMT, for example. And then in the early 2010s, we saw other bands that kind of adopted this sound and made some really huge synth wave bangers. Whenever I think of this style, this huge, larger than life synth pop music, I think of the track Sweet Disposition, which honestly, could you name any of the songs by the Temper Trap? It just felt like that song was so gigantic that you wouldn't even be able to follow it up with another hit, because how could you recreate a song like that? And people just don't seem to attach to these kind of bands. Another reason for this, I think, is that the albums themselves don't always entail a great amount of music. You get the one or two really strong tracks, but then for the rest of the album, something seems to go heavily wrong. Or even still, in today's day and age, these artists don't really have a social media presence, don't really market themselves in a way that interests people, so they kind of just fall to the wayside, which I feel as though could apply to this band. But I think the first thing I said here is more applicable, because there are two, I don't know why I did two because that's four, but two phenomenal tracks on here that I think are just so damn good. And then like the rest I could just do without. To be fair though, the opening track has a really strong groove to it. Reminds me of some LCD Sound System from like their Sound of Silver album. The chorus is pretty sweet as well. Like the singing, the interplay between both the members is pretty tight, even though I don't really care much for the guy singer as much as the girl singer, because when she kind of like unleashes her voice, it becomes really animated and really characterful, but the guy just kind of fades in the background a little bit. But at the core, even if I'm not like wowed by this track, I still think it's pretty good. Like it's solid for what it is. But then there's so much of this album that just like draws on with these decent instrumentals that are kind of like dreamy, I guess, kind of like vibey. But then for whatever reason, the vocals just decide to be very nondescript. They fall into the background, they're mixed a bit lower too. Like the energy that this singer brought on some of the tracks that was so larger than life just dissipates, and I'm just wondering why. No Way, The Sun, just two tracks that have really lifeless singing, and I'm just really struggling to see why they opted for this route when, especially No Way, coming right after Young Blood, right after that track, the massive smasher of a song, the like M83 style, like, stadium anthemness to the track. You just follow it up with a song that just doesn't have that same power to it. I just kind of get confused. Yeah, Punching in a Dream as well, which is really catchy. It's much more of a catchier track, but it's just so euphoric, man. It just feels like just teen youth kind of like coming together and just chanting this one big anthem for like anyone who's aged between like 15 and 18. It just kind of makes you wonder why they'd go down this route. I don't know. You obviously have talent here because you get these two fantastic tracks, but the rest of the album just feels like such a disappointment, really. It is kind of strange. Wolf and Geek's clothing though, is one outlier for me, because this track just is like so grating. I don't know what happened with the instrumental here. It just sounds like a complete mess to my ears. I'm confused with the way this one sounds, to be honest. It's a weird moment on the album. It doesn't feel like polished or anything like that. It doesn't even fit the album's overall sound. It's a weird track. And I feel as though maybe for some listeners you would find the singer's voice a bit grating at times because she just kind of yelp, you know, she unleashes on some tracks. But like, I kind of prefer that, you know, I kind of want that just really raw emotional moments that break free. Like, I want more of that, but so much of this album just doesn't bring that. Closing track is pretty solid too. Not something I don't think I'd really return to though. Kind of has this cheesiness to it. I can't really quite describe it, but it's a nice enough synth pop jam. But yeah, something about, I think it's the guy's voice. He takes quite a big role on this track, and I'm just not fully on board with him. But overall, the album just suffers from being too scattered. Like, you got great tracks mixed in with so many lifeless moments that are so dull to me that I really struggle to return to the whole thing in full. But I think 10 years on, they are like a relic in their time. Like, they had their big shining moments, but it's kind of weird. Bands like this just kind of just completely went to nowhere. You know, Foster the People, bands like that, really strange that we have that in music. But yeah, I think you should definitely at least take away a few tracks from this album because they still hold up. So thank you for watching my video, hopefully you enjoyed it. Once again, Patreon requests, so if you want dibs on requests on videos that I do, then definitely look into my Patreon, because videos like this wouldn't happen, and I'll try getting to them as quickly as I can. And yeah, hopefully you enjoyed. Have a good day. Goodbye.